So this is the notes that we have been working on. And what I'm doing now is because I decided I got a lot of good stuff happening on these notes, and I actually was spending more time drawing on the note page, and it's still pretty good, that I can turn the notes into a final drawing. So what I want to do is I want to get rid of anything on here that are guidelines or notations that I made for myself for notes. Using coordinate points, the letters, I don't need those in my final drawing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to erase those coordinate points. Also, any guidelines going back that I'm not using, I want to erase. So now I'm coming in and I'm just popping out any of the letters. As long as I didn't draw them down very heavy, they should erase. And I can get in there and I can kind of clear them up, okay? If I have something that is really dark and I can't erase it, what I might find I have to do, if I want this to become a finished drawing, is I might have to find a way to incorporate something that's really dark into the drawing itself. So right now, these are coming out pretty good, and I'm taking care of it. So I've got those taken care of. I've got a few more letters here, and I'm going to have to erase part of my road in order to get the letters and stuff out. So if I have to erase parts of things, you can see part of the road here got erased. I'll just simply go back in and draw it in again. Because right now, because I want this to turn into a nice finished drawing, I want to get rid of it. I also have arrows here that I was using when I was talking about the direction in which things are vanishing to. Let me get my hand out of the way there. I want to erase those arrows because those were really guidelines to show me where things were going to go, and I want to remove those. Now, any of my guidelines that I want to keep, I've got ones here that I'm using for trees. If I'm going to take my trees back more, then I want to keep those guidelines until I'm done with the trees. Also, the trees should be varying heights. Don't make them all the same. The idea being is that if I'm having trees back here, because this is way in the distance, it'll be smaller, but I can still vary the heights of things. So I'm going to check to make sure I've got all of my my notations gone. And I'm looking now to see if I've got everything erased. If I do, then I can usually take like a piece of paper towel or something. I can clear my surface so I can check. Now I want to correct if I have erased any lines that I want back in there, I want to fix them. A good example, right here, and I'm going to point with my blending stump, I had to erase the arrows, and there was a lot of them right here, a lot of detail stuff that got erased when I erased it. So I have to put that line back in. So anytime something gets erased or it gets lost, you can go back in and fix it. So there is my ruler. And I'm making sure that I'm finding my lines again. And now I'm going to go back in and I'm just correcting. So now I put my line back in. I also have a line of the road right here that got missed because I had to erase a letter that was there, my coordinate letter I had to erase. So now I'm putting the road back in place. So as I'm working like this, anything that I erased, I want to fix. So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm fixing lines. So I've got a line, part of a line here that got missed because of the eraser, and I'm going to fix that one. So far, so good. Okay, so a couple of the detailed things we were talking about, lamp posts, things like that, trees. Once you start to draw them in, again, like trees, for example, you want them in varying heights. Buildings that are down below here, you want to keep in mind that because they're below the horizon line, you see the top of the building. And if you look here, this building has actually got a recessed top where I basically drew it as if you were to go on top of the roof and there's like a wall around the roof. So I've done that too. So I'm going to turn this drawing sideways and I'm going to do a couple of other buildings, a little bit different, and show you how you can change things up. So what I decided I'm going to do, this building here, I'm going to put a steeple on it. I'm going to turn it into a church. So I've got the basic shape set up and I've got a center line right here, okay, that would come up. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a church spire right here. It's going to come up, a steeple. So I have to turn this sideways for me to do this. So because I'm putting the steeple on here, I don't want it on the front of the building. I want it on the top of the building. And it's coming up from the top. It's going to come up and be like a long, thin pyramid. So I decided how tall I want the steeple to be. Again, straight up and down, vertical lines stay vertical. And I'm going to end my steeple right there. So there's my center line. As you can see, I've drawn a center line in. Now I'm going to connect it to the top of the building. There's a corner. There's the point. And I am connecting. And I am connecting here. So by setting that up, I now have the front of the building. So there's the front. So that's basically like a flat piece, but I want to show some thickness to it as if it's coming on the side here. So I'm going to need another line here. So now I'm going to do the side line. So now I've got the spire of the building. Now, if you look at this, this is what I'm keeping. There's one side, this is the front, that's a guideline. So anything that's now overlapping, this line is going to come out, this line comes out, and this line comes out because of the fact that everything is overlapping. So now I'm going to come back in. I'm going to use an eraser on the back of a pencil so that I can get inside carefully. And I'm going to be adding detail to this, so I'll probably be able to hide those lines pretty good. So now I've got the front, the spire of the church on. And now what I want to do is I want to think about, you know, usually if you've got a spire in a church, and there might be an area where there's a bell up in here, and there might be like a window for the bell is. So I'm going to put an arch up in the top of the bell tower. So there's an arch in the bell tower. And I want to put one on this side over here too. So what I'm going to do is, because this is going back to that vanishing point, there's the bottom of that window. The other window is going to be right here. And it's going to appear smaller because the side of it is smaller. So you've got another one on the other side. And what I can do now is I can think about, okay, that looks pretty good. Now, what if the church itself did not have a flat roof at the top, but it had a pointed roof? I can decide to bring that back. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come about halfway up on my steeple here, and I'm going to put a line to my vanishing point, because now I'm going to change the shape of my roof. So there's the line going back. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this into a pointed roof by adding a line here. So now what I'm doing is I'm thinking, okay, that's going to be a pointed roof. So if I come up from the corner like that, and again, I have to turn it sideways so I can see what I'm doing. And I'm going to erase where it overlaps. And then this part of the roof is going to come down to the other side. And I'm going to shade the roof in so you can see it. So there's the center of the roof coming back. There's the point of the roof, the other side. And now because the roof is like got shingles on it, it's dark, I'm going to shade it in. So now you can see how the roof is shaped coming up. And I'm going to add a little detail around here. Now, of course, the building's going to need windows. So I figure out how many layers of windows. If this is a really, really big church, it might have 2 floors. So I think I'm going to do 2 floors worth of windows. So I'm going to turn this sideways so I can do my windows. So I'm starting with the bottom first, giving myself some room. And I'm starting with guidelines. And because what I'm doing is I'm doing just the guidelines inside the building. I'm going to hold this so you can see what I'm doing. So there's the first row of windows is going to be in here, and I'm going to put a second row of windows up there. These guidelines are going to come around. So these guidelines, of course, are going back to this vanishing point. When I do them on this side of the building, they're going to go to that vanishing point. So I'm going to carry those guidelines around. So there's my point. I'm going to put my ruler on there, and I'm going to come back. There it is, and I got to go to the next one, make sure I'm on my vanishing point. Okay. So there's where the first line of big windows is going to be. I'm giving myself a doorway. My windows are going to be there, and I'm going to set up for my top set of windows. So I'm flipping this around just so that I can see where my details are going to be. Again, I'm trying to think scale when I do this. That's why I drew my trees kind of small, because I want my buildings to look really big. So now there's going to be a set of windows in here. There's a set of windows here and here. And what I'm doing now is I'm going to shade in the rest of the tower, because a lot of times towers are like a roof material and they're darker. So I'm shading that in. And I'm putting in some detail as if it has different shaped shingles on the roof for detail. So now if I'm going to come close to the camera a little bit, you can sort of see how the detail's been added in right here on the roof. So you can see how that real simple shape was like this one got changed into the church just by adding different shapes to it. And now I've got a church. And again, I'm going to add windows and I'm going to add details to it. So there's a lot that can be done with this when you're working it. Start with your simple shapes first, and then come back in, add other shapes to it, like the tunnel shape that's right here, for example, how that was added in. If I wanted to put another tunnel shape over here, I could easily do that. So why don't I do that? So we've got a tunnel going there. Let's put another tunnel here. So the first thing that I'm going to do in order to get a tunnel shape is I want to ask myself, how big do I want it? So I'm going to make my tunnel is going to go between those two marks. So now I'm going to come up, again, straight up and down, guidelines. And again, straight up and down guidelines. So I've got that shape. The next part is going to be to curve the top. So there's my curve. I have a little bit of an overdraw, which I'm going to get rid of. So now I want to show, like this one, that it's going back into space. So this line here, that corner, is going over to this vanishing point. So I'm going to do that. There's my ruler on the vanishing point, my ruler on that corner right there on the edge of that road, and I'm going to draw just inside the arch. So I've got that. And then what I did is I went in and I erased this line right here. So it really feels like it's going inside. And the last thing I did is I added some shadow. So I took a blending stump, which is great to work with. Also a piece of paper towel will work either way. And I just make sure that when I'm doing this, I'm smudging in like that. Come in and add some of that light shadow in. And that makes it feel like it goes inside. And if I want to deepen that a little bit, you see how it's a little darker here? I've got a soft lead pencil, like a number 2 will work. And I'm adding a little extra darkness up in here. So it really feels like it's going inside. Once I've done that, come back with the blending stump or the paper towel and blend it in. And you get that feeling of the arch going in. So that's another thing to try to do. Try archways. Try to make it look like something is going in. Have parts of the buildings project out. Awnings. I noticed a couple of times people were trying to put awnings in and they were coming out really good. So think about that too. Last time we talked about the round windows, adding those into. So by starting simple like this, you can then add all the other details in.